Okay, so I think Venerable Uncle is not coming today, right? Okay, let us start our class with paying homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. He has arrived. Okay, so before starting our discussion on today's lecture, if you have anything to share based on the discussion in our last class, you are most welcome. Did you receive my email with some documents that I sent to you a few days back? Those are some of the articles on the memorization, preservation, and transmission of early Buddhist texts. Okay, and I think I have sent you 4 articles, right? 4 articles by 4 different authors. There is one by Professor Len's cousin, which I could not find, so I was not able to send it to you. Anything you would like to share or discuss? Nothing at all? So we have been talking about the efforts made by the early disciples of the Buddha and the subsequent followers of the Buddha in collecting, preserving, and transmitting the text, the teachings of the Buddha in different forms. We have also discussed how the teachings and disciplinary rules have been categorized in the beginning and how they have been looked at and classified by the commentators later on, right? In terms of 1, 2, 3, 5, in this way. So the expressions used to refer to the entire collection of the teaching was Dhamma and Vinaya, right? I just remember that there is also an article on this topic by Professor Kapila. I think probably 1 year or 2 years back, he published an essay on this expression, Dhamma Vinaya as a compound and Dhamma and Vinaya. Okay. And I think probably he provided some argument, with regard to the expression Dhamma Vinaya when it is used together. What does it mean? When the 2 terms are used separately, what do they refer to? Okay. So it seems that Dhamma and Vinaya have been used as a broad category to refer to the entire teachings and disciplinary rules given by the Buddha, right? So You do not talk about the categorization of the teachings in terms of Sutta Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, and Vinaya Pitaka. Okay, so this classification came much later, and this became the standard classification of the teachings and disciplinary rules of the Buddha. Yes. So today we are going to discuss the contents and characteristic features of the canonical and commentarial text. So we look at the canonical text first, very quickly. Of course, we do not have enough time to go through each separate text in detail. So I'll just discuss the general feature of different Pitaka and the text within each Pitaka. Okay, and then later on we'll move to the discussion on the characteristic features of commentarial literature, right? You are supposed to write an essay for this course also, right? Right? So, did you choose a topic for that? Not yet. If you want to choose a topic by yourself, you are welcome. If you want me to formulate topics for you, I can do that as well. Okay, but then I will have to see your topics because I do not want two person writing on the same topic. So yeah. So as soon as you choose a topic, you can let me know. Okay. You are free to choose if you have a good topic to write on. Sorry. Yes, as long as it is related to the course, doesn't matter. Did I mention it in the course outline? Yes, between 2000 to 2500 words. Is that okay? Is that enough? Or you want to write more? I can allow 10 more words to include 2510. Yeah, so you choose a topic to write your essay and then you make a presentation on the same topic. Okay, class presentation. And there is going to be a midterm test as well. And now we have to decide on this, if you prefer to have kind of a written test or you'd like to, engage in some kind of presentation for this as well, on a different topic, that we can decide. Yes. Yes, so we are going to have a kind of a general presentation on the contents of canonical text. And we will also try to have discussions on a specific style of presentation of the teachings. Now, this is something that we all know, right? When we talk about canonical text, it means three Pitakas and all this text. So basically, these are the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, or the important concepts of Buddhist teaching that you would find, discussed different ways in the entire Pali Canon, right? So you talk about one of this topic that include all the other topics. Four Noble Truths, for example. What do you have to say about Four Noble Truths? What is your understanding of the Four Noble Truths? And how do you find all the other important teachings contained within this? You can try to reflect on this, and connect to all the important teachings. You can make your own chart, or how do you say, notes. And it is a very important exercise to find links, among the different very, very important doctrines of Buddhism. Where do you find these Four Noble Truths being discussed? First of all, you find it to be discussed in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So if you take that sutta as the first discourse, so in the first discourse itself, the Buddha, introduced these Four Noble Truths, right? And then, of course, apart from four aspects or four truths, you may have questions such as why they are called noble truths. What is the reason, right? For them to be called noble. What is the Pali word for noble? Arya, Arya Satcha, right? Why they are called Arya? What is the meaning of the word Arya as opposed to Anarya? Then the Noble Eightfold Path. Noble Eightfold Path represents one of the Four Noble Truths, right? In fact, where do you find the detailed discussion? Probably, yes. There is a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. It is called Sammaditthi Sutta, right? Sammaditthi Sutta. And also there is another sutta, Mahachattarisaka Sutta. Mahachattarisaka Sutta. If you want to have a good understanding of the Noble Eightfold Path, you may look at these two suttas apart from other text. Sammaditthi Sutta. Now there is a text on this. I think it is by Venerable Jnanamoli, who has translated the Sammaditthi Sutta and its commentaries. Okay. So for a better understanding on the topic, you may look at this text because it contains commentarial explanation as well. So Sammaditthi is the first of the Noble Eightfold Path, right view. And how right view is defined? Right view is defined as an understanding of Four Noble Truths, right? So in the words of Bhikkhu Bodhi, these two teachings mutually inclusive. Okay, a Noble Eightfold Path exclusively represent a path of practice, right? So basically the practical aspect. But then in this practical aspect of the teaching, it says that you need to have right view. That means you need to have a proper understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So this is a primary requirement. And then when you talk about an understanding of the Four Noble Truths, it includes the practice as well. Noble Eightfold Path. The three universal characteristics of phenomenal existence. What are the three universal characteristics of phenomenal existence? Yeah, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Yes. Why they are called the universal characteristics of phenomenal existence? What does it mean by phenomenal existence? Yeah, what does it mean by phenomenal existence? Yes. Any other remark? Yeah, so when you talk about, yes, you are right. Everything that falls in the description or categorization of, causal conditioning, all that is regarded as anicca, impermanent, without any permanent substance, right? But how do they produce suffering? So there is a kind of misunderstanding that is, present, even though all these things are conditionally arising and ceasing based on different causes and conditions. But there is a wrong view, wrong belief among the sentient beings that there is something that is permanent. I exist, right? So because of this misunderstanding, there is suffering. So what is primarily the misunderstanding? Yes. Yes. So it can be regarded as a kind of seeing things wrongly, right? Understanding things wrongly, confusion. So, what are the words used to define it? Moha, delusion, deluded understanding, ignorance, avidya, right? So there is a kind of confusion. And because of this confusion with regard to the reality of existence, there is this belief that mostly actually belief in the existence of self, sakaya ditti, view of self, right? And this is inherent in all living beings. Yeah, so you look at the teachings in the Sutta Pitaka or in the Vinaya Pitaka or even in the Abhidhamma Pitaka, it is always the discussion of the phenomenal existence. Okay, so what it means is that is there anything really, truly existing out there? This question does not arise. the main subject matter of discussion is that how you are composed of, how your perception is functioning, how you perceive the world and existence. So it is always, the existence, or what do you say? Or whatever it is, existence or whatever it is, that is in your experience. And then when you become free from the idea of yourself, and how does anything appear to you? This is really, I find, a tricky, subject to discuss, because there is ultimately then the knowledge, only the knowledge, only the awareness, without somebody being aware of anything, right? And then the question is, this awareness or knowledge, can this be present all by itself? Yeah. And then there is this concept of samsara and causality, and the idea of nirvana, right? So this is the entire, this summarizes the entire discussion. Because of confusion, you are in samsara, right? And once you become free from the confusion, there is no samsara, there is nirvana. And finally, you find the discussion on sila, samadhi, panya, and vimukti. You may include one more step before sila, that is preliminary knowledge on the teachings, or on the path of practice. You do not immediately start with sila. Do you? You do not immediately start with sila. Yes, you need to have an understanding of the path before starting your journey, before beginning your journey. So that is your preliminary understanding of the teachings of the path of practice. So that is how you have samma ditti as well as sammayana, right? Samma ditti and sammayana. Then you take up the practice, starting with sila. You develop samadhi, then panya arises, and panya as a condition, there is vimukti, release, liberation. You can find this entire process being summarized in one verse in the Visuddhimagga. It also appears in Samyutta Nikaya. Sile patittaya naro sapanyo chittang panyancha bhavayan Atapi nipako bhikkhu so imang vijataye jatanti. Sile patitaya naro sapayu. Being established in virtue, a wise person, chittang panyancha bhavayang, develops his mind, that is samadhi. Atapi nipako bhikkhu, that monk who is ardent in his practice, so imang vijataye jatanti. He is able to disentangle the entanglement of samsara. So you need to be established in sila, and you can do that only if you are wise enough. And then you develop your mind, that is samadhi, and you make continuous effort, and then only you reach to the level of nirvana. So this summarizes the entire path of practice. And as we have been discussing about Ovada Patimukha, if you remember, this was one of the most important instruction given by the Buddha to his followers. And based on these instructions, they have been carried out their practice without requiring any further disciplinary rules or anything. Sabba papassa karanang kusalasa upasampada sachitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasana. How do you translate this gatha? Sabba papassa akaranang. Akaranang means not doing. Sabba papassa, not doing of any evil. Yeah. Kusalasa upasampada. Upasampada means performing, doing. Doing of good, wholesome. Sachitta pariyodapanam. Purifying sachitta, one's own mind. Etang buddhana sasana. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Now, when we talk about Sutta Pitaka, the first is Digha Nikaya, right? And then Majjhima Nikaya, then Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and then Uddaka Nikaya. So it says that the first four Nikayas contain suttas mostly by the Buddha, also by his disciples. For the most part, prose verse also included. Each begins with a backstory containing the circumstance of the discussions occurrence. So you'd find the phrase Evang Me Sutan, that is by Venerable Ananda. That is what is believed according to the tradition. Okay, so tradition says that it was Venerable Ananda who has been remembering the teachings of the Buddha, the suttas, and he has been, repeating these suttas in front of the other monks. So the expression Evang Me Sutan, thus was heard by me. This is how I have heard. Venerable Ananda was one of the 80 great disciples of the Buddha. What was his expertise? 80 great disciples were, all important, and they were expert in a certain field, certain area. Somebody is able to explain the teaching in detail. Somebody is preserving their vinayas very well. Somebody is very good in their Dhutanga practice. What was the expertise of Venerable Ananda, if you remember? That's right. Right? It's called Dhamma Bandagarika, right? What is the meaning of that? Yes. So he is able to remember most of the teachings. In fact, when he became the chief attendant to the Buddha, one of his request, one of his, how do you say, proposition to the Buddha was that he would accompany the Buddha always, and in case, he cannot follow the Buddha to some places, if the Buddha provides teachings in those different occasions, after returning to the vihara, he has to repeat the same teaching to Ananda. Okay, so that he can remember, because it seems that he himself also understood that he had this, great memory power. So he would be able to remember the teachings. Yeah, so this is Digha Nikaya. You have 34 suttas in the Digha Nikaya, divided into 3 groups. The first is called Silakanda Bhagga. In this section, you have 13 suttas. And what you find in these suttas is a presentation of a complete path structure of spiritual journey, mainly dealing with virtue, but also samadhi and panya. Among other topics discussed are views of Brahmins on sacrifice and sacred knowledge, doctrines of various religious schools about caste and self-mortification. The first 2 discourses are a kind of set the basis for the rest of the suttas. What are the first 2 discourses? The Brahmajala Sutta and the Samayapala Sutta. So what you find in the Brahmajala Sutta is a presentation of different types of views, of philosophical views or religious views, right? And the Buddha's viewpoint with regard to all these different views, based on what people are having, all these different types of views, and how these views are problematic in different aspects. And then in the subsequent sutta, that is in the Samayapala Sutta, you have a complete path structure. Mahavagga is the second section, where you would find, how many suttas? 11. 11? Count. Many suttas in this section have the prefix Maha, as the Vagga itself has Mahavagga. Most suttas are legends rather than discourses. They are the Mahapadana Sutta, for example, talk of 7 Buddhas, their whole course of action leading to Buddhahood, Dhammata, 32 marks of a great man, etc. The Mahanidana Sutta, however, deals with extensive exposition of the Paticca Samuppada. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta about the Buddha's last journey. So, yes, so according to the Theravada tradition, there is a discussion of 24 or 28 Buddhas, right? So it seems that this discussion of 24 Buddhas or 28 Buddhas developed later. In the early text, you do not have mentioning of so many Buddhas. And the practices that these bodhisattvas follow to become Buddhas. Dhammata. What is the meaning of Dhammata? What is the meaning of Dhammata? Hmm? What? Yeah. And nature, and then what else? That is also true. Sense, and then there are several meanings. So Dhammata, with regard to the Buddhas and their practices, refer to, how do you say? A particular characteristics that is attached to all these bodhisattvas and Buddhas. It's like, how do you say it? Once you take up this course of action to become Buddha, any bodhisattva, they would, have a certain characteristics that is present in all of them. For example, probably they are not going to be born in any niraya, any hell, and then they will take a certain type of form in different planes of existence, and what kind of actions they would perform, and how they are going to be born. So all this is specified. That is said to be Dharmata. 32 marks of a great man, Mahapurisa Lakkana. So it says that the Buddha had these 32 marks of a great man. Do you remember any specific marks out of these 32 marks? Mahapurisa Lakkana. Yeah, it is said that his tongue was quite long and fingers, I think, were equal probably. I don't know. And he was quite a tall person, and he had a mark on his forehead also, right? This is normally you'd see the Buddha image. And what else? And big ear probably. I don't remember many. An extensive discussion of Paticcasamuppada can be found in the Mahanidana Sutta, and of course the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The last section is Paticavagga, that contains the remaining suttas from 24 until 34, 10 or 11. It covers diverse topics: origin of things, nature of asceticism, idea of righteous monarch, conditions leading to social disharmony in a kingdom, elaboration on Buddhology, lay ethics, recitation of doctrinal matters, etc. This is in brief. Let's look at the text in Chattasangayana Tipitaka. This is Chattasangayana Tipitaka, and this is Sutta Pitaka, Digha Nikaya. You have 3 sections, right? And if you open one, Tilakandavaka. You see all the suttas here, right? List of 13 suttas. First is Brahmajala Sutta, then Samayapala Sutta. In the subsequent suttas, also you find, path of the path structure of the practice is presented, but it seems that the Samayapala Sutta actually present the complete path structure. So what you find in other suttas are just different presentations of the path structure that is found in this sutta. In the Mahavagga Pali, 10 suttas. Mahapadana Sutta, Mahanidana Sutta, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Mahasudassana Sutta, Mahagovinda Sutta, Mahasatipatthana Sutta. So many times the word Maha is used. So that is what is mentioned in the discussion. And then Patikavagga. It starts with Patika Sutta, 11 suttas here. Yeah, Chakravarti Sihanada Sutta that talks about ruling a country. Agaya Sutta, origin of beings. Pasadika Sutta, Lakhana Sutta, where you would find this discussion of, the 32 marks of great men. Sigaravada Sutta, Sangiti Sutta, Dasuttara Sutta. So let's look at this description here about the Brahmajala Sutta. The Brahmajala Sutta tells how the Buddha knows, like a good fisherman, how to catch in his net of views all sophists and philosophers, and to prove their doctrines and speculations to be worthless and obstacles to true salvation. In the course of this, he enumerates 62 different philosophical views, 62 in number, from which the follower of the Buddha is to keep away. The sutta is important not only for the information it gives about Buddhism, but also for the contribution it makes to the history of early religion and philosophy in India. There is also much dealing with social conditions, for as part of his rules for his followers, the Buddha lists many activities and professions which they must avoid. So it is really interesting if you think carefully. The Buddha is talking about as many as 62 philosophical views, right? So what it means is that, he's not just talking about his own teaching. He has a very, deep understanding about the philosophical views and practices of other traditions, right? In India. Now, how do you say? If you find a research done on, a history of philosophical views in different countries or different, part of the world, a history of philosophical views in India, a history of philosophical views in China or in the West. Somebody need to spend, many years to come up with this discussion on this topic. You need to be able to familiar with all these different viewpoints of different schools, right? So what is important here is that he's not just talking about these views. He's trying to show that how these views are problematic. They can hinder your practice. These are some of the views. With regard to eternalism, for example, here, the topic of eternalism being the first of the positions taken in regard to the past covers these four possible cases. Recollection of past lives for several 100,000 births, or collection of past lives for 20 eons, recollection of past lives for 10 eons, or 40 eons, 80 eons. So there were many sages in the time of the Buddha who are great, ascetics, and through their meditative practice, they can have this Ubenivasanusati. They can recollect their past lives as many as 80 eons, many 100,000 births, right? So if you can recollect 100,000 past births of yourself, and if you are immersed into that type of meditation, it says that these people come up with the idea that they have been existing forever. So they have this idea of existence, right? I have been living for a long period of time. I'm here and I shall be living forever, right? Just remember the discussion in the Aganya Sutta when the first Brahma appeared. And then after a very long period of time, he felt lonely and he desired some other, Brahmas to appear, right? And when he saw that there are other Brahmas, he thought that he was the one who created these Brahmas because he came first, and then out of his desire, the other Brahmas appeared. So that is how he formed this idea of Sohampati. So Aham So Pati. Sahampati Mahabrahma. I am their master. I am the uh, first being. The dimensions of the world involve the following four possible cases. Now, this is with regard to the world. Meditative experience of a limited perception, meditative experience of an unlimited perception, meditative experience of a limited and unlimited perception, theorizing, or meditative experience. So just as you understand about your existence through your meditation, you have your perception with regard to the world as well. So all this is happening through meditation, right? So you can have different types of experiences, awareness, knowledge through your meditation. Survival of a percipient self, material, immaterial, both or neither, right? So sometimes you feel that you are just floating in the air. Your material body does not exist. Now, when you talk about all these iddibalas, psychic powers, one person can become many, right? One can go through the sky, one can go through the world, one can walk on the water. So when you develop all these kinds of psychic powers, these are, based on your jhanic experiences. development of your jhanas, right? Based on your development of jhanas. You are not liberated yet. So you may develop the idea that, that is your true self. You have a particular perception of your existence and the world. And if you take that as your ultimate understanding, ultimate realization, that is a mistake. So that is why even the jhanic experiences are regarded as impermanent. And in the Samaya Pala Sutta, what you see is that the king Ajatasattu of Magadha, that is the son of King Bimbisara, right? He was remorseful because he killed his father, right? And he was remorseful and unhappy, so he invited his advisors and ministers to give him some suggestion, and they were talking about different spiritual teacher that they follow actually. And then finally, Jivaka was the physician of the king, and he was also the follower of the Buddha and also a physician to the Buddha. So he mentioned Buddha's name, and he said he can take the king to the place where the Buddha was dwelling. And then later on, King Ajatasattu went to the Buddha and they had a discussion. So the question that King Ajatasattu asked the Buddha was that about Samayapala. What are the fruits of ascetic life, right? What are the fruits? What do they, gain? And he gave the example of, like in his kingdom, if somebody is given a certain job to do, he provides wages for them, right? They get their salaries or, whatever gifts they are supposed to have because of the work, and how they spend these wages, these things, and how they stay happy with that. So that is what he mentioned to the Buddha, and he wanted to know what are the benefits of living an ascetic life. And then gradually the Buddha introduced the path structure, the entire path structure, what happens actually, once you take up the ascetic life, how you live your life, how you practice your different types of sila, and then how you become content with your life, and then you proceed in your spiritual journey until you attain arahantship. So this is, very briefly the path structure that you can find in the Samaya Pala Sutta, and also, you'd find two other suttas, kind of a different presentation of the same path structure, actually differently presented. The first one represents path structure of the Samaya Pala Sutta. So you have sila, right? And the sila is presented in three different categories: Chula sila, Majjhima sila, Mahasila. Then Indriya Samvara, Sati Sampajaya, Samputti, abandoning Nivaranas. There are 5 Nivaranas, right? And then attaining 4 jhanas. And then Vipassana Yana, then Manomaya Kaya, Iddividayana, Dipasutayana, Pariyayana, Ubenivasанусатiyana, Chutupapatayana, Asavakayayana, and then Vimukti. In the next one, you would find a different presentation, the Mahasapura Sutta. And in the Chulahati Padupama Sutta, it is slightly different. So by looking at this chart, representing three set of path structure, what do you understand? What do you see? What is your observation? This is all from Majjhima Nikaya. Do you find Sila in the middle one? Is there Sila? Vimutti is the final step that he can see, right? In the Samaya Pala Sutta, he represents a detailed presentation of the path structure. In the Mahasapura Sutta, Hiri Utapa Parisuddha Kaya Vachi Manu Samachara Parisuddha Ajiva, even Indriya Sangvara. All these come under Sila, right? So there is this factor also, Bhojana Matayuta, we have been talking about. Jagariya, Sati Sampadaya, and then abandoning Nivaranas and so on. In the third one, Sila is mentioned, and then Santutti, Indriya Sangvara. So Santutti and Indriya Sangvara can also be, counted under Sila actually. But also in Samadhi. Indriya Sangvara. What is the meaning of Indriya Sangvara? Controlling the faculties, guarding the faculties, right? So guarding the faculties means Chakku Indriya, Sota Indriya, Ghana Indriya, Jiva Indriya, Kaya Indriya, and Manindriya. So there is Samadhi involved, composure of your mind, awareness of your mind, and also Sila, right? So basically, you can categorize all these path factors into Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and Vimukti, even though they are presented differently. And Sona Danda Sutta is also from from Digha Nikaya. Sorry, Majjhima Nikaya. This is Majjhima Nikaya? No, we are talking about Digha Nikaya. Yeah, Digha Nikaya. What you find here is the matter of caste system that is discussed here. What makes a man a Brahmin, a Brahmana? The Brahminical view is that a man is a Brahman only if he is born of Brahmins on both his father's and his mother's side, back through 7 generations. Interesting. Yeah. Yes, yes. From mother's side and also father's side. Yeah, its lineage is broken. It is broken. By the Buddha's argument, however, Sonadanda is led to accept that the one who attains arahantship is not only called uh, a Brahman in Buddhist terms, but is in fact declared to be the only true Brahman. So you find a different connotation of the term Brahman. So how does the Buddha define a Brahman? In terms of his purity of action. So he says a Brahman is an Arahant, right? So it doesn't matter where you are born. You are born as a Brahmin or Kshatriya, Vaishya, doesn't matter. Sorry? Because they are saying that, the status of Brahminhood, if you claim that you are a Brahmin, their logic is that your caste should be pure, in terms of being Brahmin on mother's side and father's side, 7 generations. So that is how you maintain the purity of Brahmin. Now, taking that praise, purity, Buddha says that, if your heart is pure, if you are an Arahant, you are devoid of all the evil thoughts and actions and everything, you are a true Brahmin. Forget about, right, yeah, right. So that is one argument by the Buddha. When they say that, somebody is coming out of Brahma's mouth and Brahma's arm, thigh, and feet, the Buddha says that I see everybody is being born in the same way. Right. Yes, so that is how the expression Brahman is defined. And what you find in the Kuttadanta Sutta, this sutta is also anti-Brahmanical and tells of a Brahman who is desirous of holding a great sacrifice and comes to the Buddha to seek advice about the best way of doing it and to inquire about the requisite utensils. In the guise of a legend about King Mahavijita, the Buddha tells of the Buddhist form of sacrifice where nothing, whether animal or vegetable, is harmed, and the sacrifice consists of the, how do you pronounce this word? Largisse, I don't know, of food offered not on behalf of the king himself, but of all good people. Yeah, so this kind of things have been happening in the time of the Buddha, that a certain king would invite different Brahmins, group of Brahmins, and they would, organize sacrificial ceremonies where they want, try to kill goats, sheep, cows, right? And whenever the Buddha comes to know about these incidents, he would say that, he would provide his arguments. He would try to convince the people that it is not good to kill these, animals. They have lives, and so he would provide different arguments. In this case, it says that he provided an example of a different king, King Mahavijita, who performed sacrifices for the probably same reason that this king in the Kudadanta Sutta wanted to, perform this sacrifice, but he performed in a different way. You see, so it seems that the Buddha would try to read the mind of people, and then he would provide his arguments and teachings to convince them, right? And of course, then it depends on the people who are hearing the Buddha speak. If you do not follow, then the Buddha would say that you are going to, face your karma. Because ultimately you cannot force somebody to do something. And then there is Mahaparinirvana Sutta, where you would find a very detailed account of how the Buddha, moving from one place to another as his last journey until he came to Pava city, and where he, spent his last days in the Salavana, in the group of Sala trees, where he, passed away. What kind of trees are these Sala trees? Have you seen them? We have some in IVC. You did not see? Venerable Surya Lankara? What is the English term for Sala tree? No, Sala, that hall is different. Sala tree is different. You see those few trees there near the lake that have, a round shape, kind of fruit or something that people cannot eat, and there is flower, pink color flower, that side. Those are Sala trees. The flower looks very nice, but those fruits, I think people cannot eat them, and also when they fall down, broken, the smell is actually not so pleasant. And then there is this Chakravati Sihanada Sutta. Yes. So what do you notice in the Digha Nikaya Suttas is that, of course, it includes discussions on various topics. But, the suttas are long, and you have different stories and legends being mentioned in these suttas. Basically, it deals with matters related to the society, actually, running of a country, dealing with the social idea of this caste system, right? And origin of the world and these things. But also you have suttas like Brahmajala Sutta, Samaya Phala Sutta, where you have serious discussions on different philosophical views, path structure, and so on. Hmm? You can check, as sultry, S-A-L, sultry. Here you can see the picture of Saltry. Do you see? Yeah. Yeah, the flowers are beautiful. Huh? Saltry. Okay, what time is it? Probably we can have a break for sometimes, and then we will start after the break. Okay, let's have a break and see you after the break. Okay, let's resume the class now. Yes, so we have been talking about some of the suttas of the Digha Nikaya. Now, let's discuss something from the Majjhima Nikaya. So there are altogether 152 suttas, again divided into 3 sections. They are called actually Pannasa, right? Pannasa means 50s, but in the third section you have 52 suttas. And each Pannasa contains 5 bhaggas. Every bhagga has 10 suttas, right? Mula Pannasa is the first one, where you can find autobiographical account of the Buddha, ascetic practices, meeting different teachers, his attainment of enlightenment, for example, the Arya Pariyasana Sutta, Maha Satchaka Sutta, and so on. And there is also the discussion on the path of practice, for example, the Satipatthana Sutta. So there is a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya called Satipatthana Sutta, and there is a sutta in the Digha Nikaya that is called Maha Satipatthana Sutta. So the subject matter of the discussion in these 2 suttas are basically the same, right? But the only thing is that it is more elaborative in the Digha Nikaya version. And there is a discussion on the proper attitude to learning and handling the teaching. That is, you can find in the Alagadupama Sutta with so many different similes. The simile of, a poisonous snake, the simile of an, arrow, right? The simile of a boat. Then you have suttas containing explanation on the, ascetic practices, different types of ascetic practices that you can find in the Mahasihanada Sutta, Mahadukka Kanda Sutta, Chola Dukkha Kanda Sutta, and so on. Majjhima Pannasa is the second, section where you have suttas discussing on the practices of other school of thoughts. For example, Upali Sutta, Ukkaravatika Sutta, Kandaraka Sutta, Apannaka Sutta, and so on. In the Upali Sutta, there is a discussion of 3 types of action. kaya kamma, vachi kamma, mano kamma. The word used by the, this person Upali is danda actually, so they categorize these actions as kaya danda, mano danda, vachi danda, mano danda. And their explanation is that danda usually means punishment, right? So your action, you do good or bad, should be understood in terms of punishment, whereas karma represent, just the action, and then according to action you have consequences rather than just punishment, right? Some suttas might have been inserted after the parinibbana of the Buddha. For example, Madhura Sutta, Gotamukha Sutta, Gotamukha Sutta. And there is an account of Buddha's encounter with Brahmins on caste system again. For example, the Asalayana Sutta, Madhura Sutta, Rattapala Sutta. Okay, so in different suttas, the Buddha, when he meets a different group of Brahmins, and when there is a discussion on this caste system, he provides which is considered to be of later origin. Among other topics that are discussed in these sections are discussion on Pacheka Buddha in the Isigili Sutta, discussions regarding the birth of a Buddha in the Acharya Buddha Dhamma Sutta, suttas preached by his disciples like Gopaka Moggallana Sutta, Ananda Bhadde Karatta Sutta, Mahakachana Bhadde Karatta Sutta, and Bhadde Karatta Sutta. You have suttas on Kamma and Vipaka, primarily the Chulla Kamma Vibhanga Sutta, Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta, Bala Pandita Sutta. Okay. So in the Chatta Sangayana, you can look at the suttas, but if you want, we can go through actually some of the suttas and see how things are discussed there. Now, if you read any sutta, you would find there is a lot of repetition, okay? Right? You can read all the repetitions. You can also avoid them and then read the main part of the sutta. The repetitions are provided for different reasons. Now, and this is again related to recitation and memorization, right? So you repeat many times, then you remember. And as far as I remember, normally, I think probably it is even nowadays also it is practiced in different traditional Buddhist countries. You go to any senior master, a Buddhist monk who provide teaching or guidelines to the younger monks and novices. When they are explaining something, they will do a lot of repetition. For example, if the monk is talking on a particular topic, if he says that let's talk about why he should become virtuous, so he comes up with a question with the topic, and then he would ask the student to repeat the question, what is the topic today? And then they would have to say that why we need to become virtuous, why it is important to become virtuous, right? So they are repeating it, and then he would provide explanation with some examples and similes, or probably some stories from the text or from his own experience. He came across a certain person who is behaving in a certain way, and then the experiences that that person had, and that the monk observed. So he'd provide the story to the novice monks, to the listeners, and then he would ask these people to tell him back again, what is the story? Who was the person? What was he doing? So I think probably it is present even in Myanmar, in Thailand. I'm not very sure, but certainly, I had some experience of this kind, when I was young, and these senior monks, when they would say something, they would tell in this way. So that was a kind of a style that they have been following. So this, I see when you look at the commentarial explanation, for example, what do you see is that they take up a certain phrase and then they provide explanation. The phrase from the sutta or an incident from the sutta. And then they would provide the explanation. For example, the sutta that I have studied earlier, Tatavinita Sutta. Now, Venerable Punnamantaniputta comes to meet the Buddha in one place, and Venerable Sariputta, who was accompanying the Buddha, he was there. And then when he came to know that Punnamantaniputta came there, he wanted to go and meet the monk, right? And the commentators raised the question, when did he go? How did he go to meet? And do they, did they recognize each other, and how Venerable Sariputta was so eager to meet Punnamantani Putta, his eagerness is explained. It says that he would tell everyone, all the other monks around him, that, by any chance, if you see him, just let me know, So his eagerness is expressed. And then it says that Venerable Punnamantani Putta, immediately after meeting the Buddha and having a brief discussion with the Buddha, he went to a forest to spend his time, Diva Viharaya, for his relaxation, his meditation. He went to, it is called Andavana. And Venerable Sariputta also followed him, but at that time he did not meet Punnamantani Putta. So it says how he followed. It is said that Andavana was a huge forest and a lot of trees and everything there. So you need to, be close enough so that you do not miss the monk, Punnamantani Putta. But then he said he was walking not too close so that the monk, is disturbed, because he's walking in mindfulness, he need to carry out his practice. And Venerable Sariputta does not want to disturb him at this point of time. So he has his own planning, to meet Punnamantani Putta. So when it was evening, it is time for them to, arise from the meditation. Sariputta then went to Punnamantani Putta's place, and then they greeted each other and they started the conversation. So taking a particular phrase or incident from the sutta, in the sutta you just find that, Venerable Sariputta wanted to meet Punnamantani Putta. And when they met, they had this discussion. But in the commentarial explanation, it provides you details about the environment, the psychology of it. So in a way, the commentarial exposition make it lively. You can see it, you can feel it. So that way. And then a group of monks came to meet the Buddha. These monks came from Kapilavatthu, right? And then the Buddha was asking them, who is their master, who is teaching them. And he wants to know about their master, what he was practicing and so on. But these monks came from Kapilavatthu, and Kapilavatthu is the homeland of the Buddha, right? And it seems that after the Buddha left and he became the Buddha and he started his teaching career, by that time, for many years, he did not actually go back Kapilavatthu. So the commentators raised the question why he was not asking about his parents, his relatives, why he's asking about this monk particularly. What is the reason? What could be the reason? You see? So you find all these discussions in the commentarial text. So that is why it's very clear that just by looking at a sutta, sometimes you do not get the entire message. Many things are, you do not just see them, because uh, you need a commentarial guide, commentarial exposition, or you need a master to explain all these matters, somebody who has knowledge on all this, right? So repetition is one part of it, just not for the remembering or memorization. It is interactive. Okay. Yeah, I'll share this and let's go through this and try to understand the discussion within the sutta. Take, for example, this Madhura Sutta. There is a discussion on caste system. So this is Bhikkhu Sujata's translation. So I have heard. At one time, whenever Mahakachana was staying near Madura in Gunda's group, King Avantiputta of Madura heard. It seems the ascetic Kachana is staying near Madura in Gunda's group. He has this good reputation. He's astute, competent, clever, learned, a brilliant speaker, eloquent, mature, a perfect one. It's good to see such perfect ones. So what you see immediately here is that, first of all, Evang Me Sutta, this is a report by Venerable Ananda, and he's providing the backstory for the discussion. First of all, he's talking about, the place, Madura, Gunda's group, and he's talking about this monk, Venerable Mahakachan, right? And after that, what you see is that there was a king, King Avantiputta of Madura. This person heard about Venerable Mahakachan. And what did he hear about Mahakachan? This is what he heard, right? So he heard that this monk is really talented, he's clever, learned, brilliant speaker, and so on. So therefore, King Avantiputta was thinking of meeting this person. Now, if you look at this passage here, King Avantiputta of Madura heard. This section from the text, we understand that this is by Ananda. And this direct quotation, this is probably the thought expressed by King Avantiputta, right? So this is how you can separate different sections, and the message is also, the teachings. If you look closely at any sutta, the entire sutta in a way does not represent the teaching. Within the sutta, there are discussions on the teaching. Sometimes the statements are made by the disciples, sometimes by the Buddha. Okay. And then King Avantiputta had the finest carriages harnessed. He mounted a fine carriage, and along with other fine carriages, set out in full royal pomp from Madura to see Mahakachana. He went by carriage as far as the terrain allowed, then descended and approached Mahakachana on foot. They exchanged greetings, and when the greetings and polite conversation were over, the king sat down to one side and said to Mahakachana. So again, this entire description is probably from Ananda, right? How did he go there? And then here we find what did he say, what did he tell to Kachana, Master Kachana. The Brahmins say only Brahmins are the highest caste, other castes are inferior. Only Brahmins are the light caste, other castes are dark. Only Brahmins are purified, not others. Only Brahmins are Brahma's rightful sons, born of his mouth, born of Brahma, created by Brahma, heirs of Brahma. What does Master Kachana have to say about this? So now in this case, you see that it is not any Brahmin that is claiming that they are, they belong to a higher caste. It is a king who, heard about it probably so much, and he wanted a clarification from this Master Kachana, or he wanted some explanation from this Master Kachana. What is his view? And his view is important. It's not going to just anybody, right? And you need to keep in mind that this is a king. This is a king who want to have this conversation with this monk. Great king, that is just propaganda. And there is a way to understand that it is just propaganda. What do you think, great king? Suppose an aristocrat prospers in money, grain, silver, or gold. Wouldn't there be aristocrats, Brahmins, merchants, and workers who'd get up before him and go to bed after him and be obliging, behaving nicely, and speaking politely? There would, Master Kachana. So now, Venerable Kachana is providing an explanation with a question, right? And getting the answer, or how do you say, the consent from the king himself. So probably this could be taken as a way of saying things, right? It is in a way engaging the person in the conversation or in the discussion very well. Rather than just providing the explanation, he's posing the question with the explanation and asking the king if he agrees or not. What is his opinion? Now, what it is saying here? Aristocrat. Okay, so I think probably it's better to check the words also. Khattiya. So the word aristocrat is used for Khattiya, right? Yeah. Now keep in mind that there are four castes: Brahmins, Khattiya, Vaishya, and Sudra. So now here the discussion says that if a Khattiya person has a lot of money and so on, well, don't you think that somebody from any caste, any other caste, would respect him? They would listen to him. So you see the direction of the argument. The Buddha, the Mahakachana is emphasizing on the power of wealth. If you have so much wealth, you can keep anyone as your servant, or people to help you, right? Somebody to listen to you or help you in different ways. It doesn't matter what caste he belongs to. What do you think, great king? Suppose a Brahmin. Now the question is with regard to Brahmin. For example, a Brahmin has all this wealth, right? What about a merchant, Vaishya? And then a Sudra. a worker, prospers in money, grain, silver, or gold, wouldn't there be workers, aristocrats, Brahmins, merchants? So that means wouldn't there be Vaishya, Khattiya, Brahmin, and Suddha, Khattiya, Brahmin, and Vaishya who get up before him and go to bed after him and be obliging, behaving nicely and speaking politely. The king agrees. And then Venerable Kachana asks, what do you think, great king? If this is so, are the four castes equal or not? Or how do you see this? Then the king says, certainly, Master Kachana. In this case, these four castes are equal. I can't see any difference between them. You see? And here is another way to understand that the claims of the Brahmins are just propaganda. Again, he asked the question, what do you think, great king? Take aristocrat who kills living creatures, steals and commits sexual misconduct, uses speech that is false, divisive, harsh, and nonsensical, and is covetous, malicious, has wrong view. When their body breaks up after death, would they be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell, or not? Now this is now is providing a different reasoning here, right? This is based on ethical principle. The earlier one was based on the possessions, material possessions. If you are wealthy, you can hire anybody to do your work, to help you. And now, in this case, the second point, Venerable Kachana is talking about ethical principle that if a Khattiya, performs all the evil actions, evil deeds, what would be his vipaka? After his death, he is going to be reborn in a place of loss. Kaya sabeda parang marana. After breaking up of the body, after death, apayang duggating vinipatang nirayang upapajjaya nova. Apayang, place of loss. Duggati, bad place. Vinipata, underworld. Niraya, hell. And if this is true with a Khattiya, it is true with a Brahmin, Vaishya, or Sudra. Right? So on the ethical basis, also, they are all same. Again, whenever Kachana asks, what do you think, great king? If this is so, are the four castes equal or not? And then he says that they are equal. And then he provides another argument. Here is another way to understand that the claims of the Brahmins are just propaganda. What do you think, great king? Take an aristocrat who doesn't kill living creatures. So this is the positive actions, kusala karma. When somebody doesn't kill living creatures, doesn't steal, doesn't commit sexual misconduct, they don't speak lie, divisive speech, harsh speech, nonsensical speech. They are contented, kind-hearted, they have right view. After death, they are born in good place in heaven. And it is true for everyone. The king agrees. And then Mahakachana provides another argument. Take an aristocrat who breaks into houses, plunders wealth, steals from isolated buildings, commits highway robbery, commits adultery. Suppose your man arrest him and present him to you, saying, Your Majesty, this man is a bandit, a criminal. Punish him as you will. What would you do to him? The king said, I would have him executed, fined, or banished, or dealt with as befits the crime. Now this is state matter. You see, When you perform social crime, what would be your punishment? It doesn't matter if you belong to Brahmin caste, Khatriya caste. The punishment would be the same according to the law. Supposed to be the same. Yeah, sometimes there is problem also. This is from a Pali Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya. So you can say this represents Theravada text, Theravadin viewpoint. A lot of things involved in this discussion, you see. So eating meat or fish is not entirely prohibited in the Theravada tradition, and it is connected with the Pindapata system. You go for alms round, you do not make a choice. So whatever food you get, normally the idea is that if it is sufficient for you, that is enough, you come back and you eat and you carry out your practice. Right. So therefore, then there is another okay. Yeah, so regarding this eating meat and fish, first is this Pindapata system. Second is that there is this consideration that if somebody feels, after taking the food, somebody has this thought that probably they were killed, he should not enjoy the food, he should not eat them, and probably he should avoid it. Okay, if he has that doubt, that is one side of it. And then it is very much connected to the social living, how the society functions as well. So by choice, if you become vegetarian, it's okay, but then you have to face some social challenges. Probably you are living in a place where people are, eating meat or whatever. So you would have to find your way to survive if you really want to become vegetarian. For me, for example, I am neither vegetarian nor non-vegetarian. But personally, I do not like so much this meat thing. That is for a different reason, right? So, and that is one aspect with regard to this meat and killing. And nowadays, of course, I think if you talk about any meat or fish, it's not, this meat are probably not coming from, naturally that animals. They are factories, right? You know, killing and producing these things. So of course we have to be more careful. That is true. But then the other aspect that you said is two sides of it. One is how do you say? It is always up to us, because what happens is that we always try to think of our side to be true and right. We are not able to see other people's sides, so that is why our Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, what I'm saying is that the practice of the teaching, teaching is up to us. How you see it, how you understand it. It is not very much. Sometimes it is not very much connected to your eating food. Somebody might be completely vegetarian, but still may have some evil thinking going on. Right? It is also possible. So, and yeah. So, and generally, of course, we need to be nice to each other, right? So, not just among the human beings, uh, with the animals as well, as much as possible. Um, you need to understand that they have their life as well. So we should not. We should try to avoid harming them as much as possible. Yes. So then again, it comes back to our own understanding and practice. What is the phrase? Atahi atanunato, kohinato, parasya, right? One is one's own master. Yeah. Right, that is the discussion as well. Right, right. You have to be extremely mindful, you see, because even if you taste an ice cream, if it is nice, and you'd say that, this is tasty, I want to eat one more. It's not easy. Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, so just focusing on the food is not, I think, you focus on the food to decide people's behavior entirely, people's spiritual progress. I think that is not really possible because there are a lot of factors that is contributing. Food is one thing. Food has some influence in our body, in our mind, right? And so is other things. Where are you living? The condition, what kind of conversation you are having, right? So that is why I'm saying that you can be, you can eat any type of food, but then you can be either kind or unkind. How it depends on your upbringing, your understanding of the teaching. You see, so many things involved.
someone and people who in the meeting. If you are not free and not allowed to the food, that's what I was saying. So you don't know this much. Just follow the freedom. Freedom, put that in mind. Freedom and the feels of it. That's a good thing. So we have two ways. Feels of freedom and we have to. We have to. Just you should not be, whatever you do, it should not be your heart and study. So we are going to be master. Okay, and I want to be master. So master is that if we are going to be master or the children is not. That's a good.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Ah. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, right. Ultimately, it comes back to, as I said, it is always, you, what you think, how you feel, how you take it, how you see it, if it is contributing to your spiritual growth or not. There is no one else to really guide you. So it is always you need to be with you. You need to question yourself, your situation. But of course, then probably you cannot do it too much. Also, then you will have problems in living life. Sometimes you just need to let go. It's not easy. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, right. If you relate to that way, it's also right. Yeah, yeah. Yes, true. Yes, Venerable Sri Alankara, you wanted to say something?
If we don't know, if we don't know, we don't know if they are there or not. But even I can compare to you. Okay, you use this one. Okay, then I'll come in here. It should have this. So that's also one of the things. Appealing to be, appealing to be.
Yes, yes, right. Right. Yeah, not just about food. Yeah. Not seen. and then unsuspected, unheard, unseen, unsuspected.
Because we are teaching to the people, the only for teaching to people that understand the environment.
Yeah. Yes. Jivaka Sutta. Yeah, interesting discussion. But then, you do not just talk about one particular aspect. You question everything. If you are really sincerely, you want to follow or you want to proceed to the spiritual path, you want to make a spiritual progress, that is completely a different thing. It's like you are joining this course, this program, you need to, fulfill the requirement. If it is joining the classes, taking, participation in the discussion, writing essays, examination, you need a good grade also, right? So all these things are important. Now, if you say that you can eat meat if it is unheard, unseen, and unsuspected. But then the question is why there is so much of discussion on this eating and not eating meat? What is the reason actually? Are you just focusing on your spiritual progress or the environment or your nutrition or your development of kindness and compassion? What is it exactly? Right? And then the question would be, if you are really going by Vinaya rules and so on, then I would have questions with regard to everything. As a monk, are you supposed to use computer, mobile phone, slippers? What kind of robes you are supposed to wear? What kind of tables and chairs you are supposed to use? Everything. Yes. Yeah, so Vimalakirti Sutra, probably it has a different intention, but as far as I understand from the early Buddhist teaching, what actually, it comes down to some very basic principles as I sometimes, and most of the time probably I mention the class because I believe in these few specific teachings. That is, as much as possible, you check yourself, your body, speech, and mind. If you are happy, just living a simple life, what is your requirement actually? So these are some reflections. Otherwise, it becomes too philosophical. Take take up all these different suttas, provide the reasoning and logic, and this is how people normally study and do the things. But as far as I see, how this text, these teachings influence you. Now, as a student, of course, you need to pass the exam, but definitely these suttas, these teachings are having some influence on you, right? Doesn't matter if you are a monk, nun, or lay person, right? So it is up to you how you want to understand the message and put it into your practice. It does not mean that tomorrow you have to become an arahant or Buddhas. No, right? As a lay person, probably, I don't know, probably after 5 years, you may have that realization that you want to take up a serious practice, spiritual practice, right? It might happen, I don't know. But then when you take up the practice, all these principles, apart from your just general simple understanding of the teaching that you want to become good, you want to be happy, you know, you just check yourself, how you are behaving, how you are doing things without blaming yourself too much, you know. So when you take up the practice seriously, then all these things matter very much, very much. Every minute detail in your thought process, your with regard to your, body movement, everything matters because you have to be really, really mindful of every movement that you are making. That is your serious practice, right? The discussion then is a different one. We cannot mix up, you know, these two things together. It is like when you have the discussion on the Sammuti Satcha, you have to stick to that. You cannot bring the discussion of Paramatta Satcha, otherwise things will get mixed up. But what you are saying is true by the same logic. That is also possible. But then, if somebody doesn't have any kind of attachment at all, why he is supposed to do all these things? Because there's no attachment. He does not exist. He does not have the idea of self. What he then needs is probably, as long as he's surviving, he need to eat food, he need to sleep, and then he shares Dhamma teaching. He guides people. So it is contradictory. Contradictory. Somebody who is free from attachment, taking pleasure in doing something, anything, it can be food or whatever, taking pleasure in doing something with the logic that I do not have attachment. So, you know, so that is contradictory. Right, true. Yes, anything else? Okay, so we have some more time. Let's quickly complete this section. Okay. So that is the style of the sutta, and probably you can look at the full sutta later on. We do not have enough time to go through all these different suttas. Let's look at the last section. So finally, okay. So after all the discussion, the king tells Mahakachana, I go for refuge to Master Kachana, to the teaching and to the mendicant Sangha, the Buddha, the Kachana, the Dhamma and Sangha. From this day forth, may Master Kachana remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. Great king, don't go for refuge to me. Mahakachana is telling the king. You understand this point? So after the entire discussion, the king is saying that I go for refuge to you. I take refuge in you. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Mahakachana is saying that do not take refuge in me. You should go for refuge to that same blessed one to whom I have gone for refuge. Right? So Master Kachana is saying that you need to take refuge in the Buddha. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Right? Bhagavantang saranang gacchami. So he says, Tameva twang bhagavantang saranang gaccha. Yamahang saranang gatoti. To the same blessed one, I also take refuge. But where is that blessed one at present, the perfect one, the fully awakened one? Great king, the Buddha has already become fully extinguished. So by that time, the Buddha attained parinibbana already. The Buddha is no more. Master Kachana, if I heard that the Buddha was within 10 leagues or 20 or even up to 100 leagues away, I would go 100 leagues to see him. So this shows the conviction of the king towards the Buddha based on the discussion that he had with Mahakachana, right? So you see that Mahakachana, as a student of the Buddha, was successful in the sense that he was really truly able to convey the true message to the king, right? And again, we need to keep in mind that the conversation, the discussion taking place between a king and a great disciple of the Buddha. But since the Buddha has become fully extinguished, I go for refuge to that fully extinguished Buddha, to the teaching and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may Master Kachana remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So probably I think some of you have answer to our discussions that we are having, that if you do not have attachment, if you are free from the attachment, somebody want to become somebody want to take you as a master, want to take refuge in you, you reject it. You say that take refuge in the Buddha, is the supreme master. You see what I mean? If all your struggle is to be free from the idea of self, after you become selfless, how can you become selfish? By logic, it is not possible. Is it possible? Okay, so that is from the Majjhima Nikaya. If you have time, you can go through some of the selected suttas to see. And now let's talk about Samyutta Nikaya, where you have 5 sections: Sagata Vagga, Nidana Vagga, Khanda Vagga, Salayatana Vagga, and Mahavagga. Of course, you have various topics being discussed in here. You have different Samyutta. For example, Jhana Samyutta. Look at this slide. How they are arranged, how the suttas are arranged. Salayatana Samyutta, Chitta Samyutta. So what you find in the Jhana Samyutta is that Sanyutta refers to a collection of text talking about jhana, basically, primarily. Jhana means absorption, trance. Salayatana Sanyutta means collection of suttas talking about salayatana. Salayatana means 6 sense bases. Then Chitta Sanyutta, Asankata Sanyutta, similarly. So these are some doctrinal matters with regard to which you have different Sanyuttas. But then you have different collection of suttas attached to a particular personalities or figures. For example, God, Devata Sanyutta, talking about Devas. Mara Sanyutta, talking about evil devas. Okay. Kosala Sanyutta, talking about the Kosala king. The discussion that the Buddha or some of his disciples had with Kosala. Brahmana Sanyutta, the discussion focused on Brahmana. Accordingly, you have collection of suttas related to a particular person. Kassapa Sanyutta, related to Mahakassapa. Rahula Sanyutta, Sariputta Sanyutta, and so on. Vangisha Sanyutta. Yeah. Look at, for example, here. This is Satipatthana Sanyutta. This is number 3. You have Sanyutta Nikaya, 5 Sanyutta. Now this is from Mahavagga, Bojjhanga Sanyutta. Under that, Satipatthana Sanyutta. And under Satipatthana Sanyutta, you have a set of suttas talking about Satipatthana. The first one is Ambapali Sutta. So these suttas are short. What is it that is discussed here? Evang me sutang ekang samayang bhagava vesaliyang viharati Ambapali vane tatrako bhagava bhikkhu amantesi bhikkhavoti Bhadante tite bhikkhu bhagavato pachasosun bhagava etadavocha Ekayanu ayang bhikkave maggo sattanang visuddhiya soka paridevanang samatikkamaya dukkado manassanang Attangamaya yanassa adigamaya nibbanassa satchikiriyaya yaditang chattaru satipatthana. Katame chattaru Ida bhikkave bhikkhu kaye kayanupassī viharati atapi sampajano satima vinayya loke avijjado manassang vedanasu vedananupassī viharati atapi sampajano satima chitte chittanupassī viharati dhamme dhammanupassī viharati and so on. So 4 satipatthanas, right? What do you find in the next sutta? Again, same. Kaya kayanupassī viharati and so on, this etc. Right? But you find an extra passage here. Katancha bhikkave bhikkhu sampajano hoti, a discussion on sampajano. Ida bhikkave bhikkhu avikkante patikkante sampajanakari hoti alokite vilokite sampajanakari hoti saminjite pasarite sampajanakari hoti and so on. So this passage again, all these things are connected to all our discussions actually. So these things again is connected to the practice that if you really take out the practice, what it is saying is that when you are moving your hands, when you are breathing, when you are doing anything with your body, whatever you are doing, you need to be mindful. That is your practice. So this is for as really serious practitioner. If you want to achieve a certain goal, because that is your objective, right? Satipatthana. So this is just an example. Okay, Anguttara Nikaya and Uddaka Nikaya text, probably we'll look at them later on very quickly. Now let's look at this section very quickly before we finish our class today. This is the passage that I sent to you, right? I have marked here, you see carefully. What I asked you to do is to find out name of the text and their authors. Okay, Tateva Attakatayu Buddha Gosatero Magada Vasaya Parivatetwa Virachi Pacha Cha Yaguyena Tateva Attakata Tika Anumadu Lakhana Ganti Gandantarani Akansu Puna Sasanan Nabhe Ravinduva Supakasitang Ahosim. So what it says is that Venerable Buddha Gosa, all the Attakatas, Attakatayo, Magadha Bhasa Parivartitva. He not translated, probably transliterated into Magadha Bhasa. So probably Magadha Bhasa here refers to Pali Bhasa, right? Because he came to Sri Lanka and then he was doing the translation work, transliteration work. So because the texts were not available in India by that time. So his teacher asked him to come to Sri Lanka and translated the text and then take back to India. So he did that. Not just Attakata, it says Tateva Attakata Tika Anumadu Lakhana Ganti Gandantarani. Attakata Tika and some other text, different types of Ganti, different text, minor text, and so on. Tata Buddhavamsa Attakata Buddhadatta Tervakasi. So Buddhavamsa Attakata, commentary to Buddhavamsa is written by who? Buddhadatta. So that is something that you can see here. Iti Buddho Udana Charya Pitaka Therateri Vimanavattu Petavattu Netti Attakatayo Acharya Dhammapalatera. So these are by Acharya Dhammapalatera. How many texts? Iti Buddhaka Udana Charya Pitaka Theragata, 8, right? Therigata Vimanavattu Petavattu Netti, 8. Socha Acharya Dhammapala Thero Sihala Dipasa Samipe Damilaratte Padaratitamhi Nivasitatta Sihala Dipe Eva Sangahetva Vattatu Patisambhida Maddatta Katang Mahanamo Namatero Akasi. Patisambhida Magga Attakata is composed by Mahanamatera. Mahanidasa Attakatam Upasana Upasano Namatera. Upasana composed Mahanidasa Attakatam. Abhidhamma Tikampana Anandatera. Now here Abhidhamma Tika. It's not Attakatam, right? This is by Anandateru. Sacha Sabbang Tikanam Adi Buddhatta Mula Tikati Pakata. So this Tika is said to be the first of all the Tikas. Visuddhi Maggassa Mahatikang Diga Nikayata Kata. Yang Tikang Majjhima Nikayata Kata Tikang Sangitta Nikayata Kata Tikang Chati Imayu Acharya Dhammapala Tervakas. So the Tika to the Diga Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Sangitta Nikaya, and Visuddhi Magga Mahatika were composed by Dhammapala. Sarata Dipani Nama Vinaya Tikang, Anguttara Nikaya Tikancha, Parakama Bahuranya Yachitu, Sariputta Tervakas. So whenever Sariputta composed, Sarata Dipani, Vinaya Tika, Anguttara Nikaya Tika, with the request of Parakrama Bahu King Parakrama. Vimati Vinodani Nama Vinaya Tika, Damilarattavasi, Kassapa Tervakas. Remember Kassapa from Damilaratta composed Vimati Vinodani. That is Vinaya Tika. And then Anutikam Pana Acharya Dhammapalater. So Its Anutika was composed by Dhamapala Thero. Sacha Mula Tikaya Anuttanathani Uttanani Katwa Sangvanitatta Anutika Vuchati. Visuddhi Maggassa Chulatikang Madhu Dipanchati Aya Taratera. Aya Taratera means certain other theras. Yes, not a specific, not any specific thera. Their name is not mentioned. Sava Mulatikaya Atha Vasesanicha Anuttam Attanicha Uttanani Katwa Mulatikaya Sadding Sanditwa Katatta Madhura Sattacha Madhu Deepaniti Uchati. So this is general statement with regard to the text and their, and the work carried out with these masters. So this passage shows present a list of masters, acharyas, who have composed some of the attakathas and tikas. So in the next class, I hope that you prepare a list. And if it is possible, write them with the canonical text, together with the canonical text. That would be nice. You have to go. Okay. We are ending the class. Okay. Yes. Any questions so far? Okay. Thank you. Okay. See you later. Yeah, so I think probably we end our class here, and then if you want, we can have some. Yeah. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining the class. We end our class here. See you next week.